Well, hello, everyone. It's 2 o'clock on the East Coast, and I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. So I think it's time to get this webinar party started. My name is Paul Nardone. I am from Misericordia University, and I have the pleasure of serving as your moderator for today's webinar. How to submit a killer award nomination and session proposal. I'd like to take a moment to welcome everyone and offer a big thank you for taking time and for showing interest in today's webinar. I'd also like to thank our friends and colleagues at UPCEA for making today's webinar possible. Amy Heitzman, who really corralled the crew that you're going to meet with today and hear from today, and Jacqueline Romero, who is our Zoom tech guru for the day. She is behind the scenes making sure that all things Zoom happen as they're supposed to. So before we get started, I had a couple of housekeeping items that I wanted to mention. Number one, today's webinar is being recorded, so you will have future access to the call to view at your leisure. I'm sure some of you, if you're bored with Game of Thrones, you might want to watch a little webinar sometime in the future, so you can do that at your leisure. Also, number two, if you have any questions during today's call, use your chat function, which I think is located on the bottom of your screen. If you hover down along the bottom of the screen, you'll see the chat function there. That's the best way to get questions to us, and we'll do our best to get to all your questions throughout the webinar today. We've assembled a rock star team today. We have folks from all across the country and from all the different regions who are here to share with you their stories and some tips and best practices to assist you in doing what today's purpose is, which is helping all of us figure out how to submit killer award nominations and session proposals. I'd like to take a moment to ask each of our guest panelists to introduce themselves to you, and I'm going to let them take it from here and introduce themselves.
I'll start. My name is Mary Angela Baker. I'm with Salisbury University, which is part of the University Systems of Maryland, and I am the Director of Extended and Lifelong Learning.
Thanks, Mary Angela.
My name is Nichole Henry. I am the Director of Admissions at Syracuse University for University College, which is our part-time online programs, and I am co-chair for the awards committee for the Mid-Atlantic region.
Thanks, Nichole.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michele Gribbins, and I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Online Learning Research and Service at the University of Illinois Springfield, and I am part of the Online Administration Network.
Thanks so much, Michele.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Merriam. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions for Framingham State University. I'm also a past chair of the Marketing and Enrollment Management Seminar and on the annual planning committee this year.
Thanks, Michael.
I'll go next. Hello everybody, I'm Khusro Kidwai. I'm with Tarragona Associates, managing partner with that startup firm, and I'm vice chair for the PPI network with UPCEA, and I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you.
Thanks, Khusro.
Hello, this is Danelle Pankratz. I am a program manager with Cal State University Fullerton, and I serve as the awards committee chair for the West region.
Thanks, Danelle.
Hi, this is Marcy Ritter. I'm with K-State Global Campus in Manhattan, Kansas. I am the past chair for the Central Region, or past awards chair, sorry, for Central Region.
Thank you very much, Marcy.
And hi, I'm Terry Nagel, Assistant Director of Research for Mizzou Online at the University of Missouri, and past chair for Central Region.
Thanks, Terry. Well, if it wasn't obvious before, it's obvious now. You've got some rock stars on the call today. So we're hoping for some good discussion and some good questions from you to help address whatever issues or questions or problems or concerns you may have with regard to award nominations and session proposals. There is one individual that's not with us today, Matt Davis from Wilmington University. Unfortunately, could not be with us. Matt had a family emergency. He's part of the planning committee, conference planning committee at Mid-Atlantic. And he has been working on an instructional video, a short video, about 2 or 3 minutes. And we want to show that to you today. So you'll have a chance to meet Matt virtually, although he couldn't be with us today on the call. Before we dive in, I did want to share a couple of thoughts on, why are we here? Why have we gathered? And I think there's a few things that came to mind for me, and I'm sure there's many that came to mind or will come to mind for you as we go through the call. The first one is that formally recognizing the amazing people and the work and programs that exist within our institutions and within the UPCEA regions is really important work. That's number one. And nominations for the UPCEA awards and session proposals are unbelievable opportunities to recognize and reward and showcase this work and these people. We hope to demystify, that was a word that came up time and time again, this idea of demystification, demystifying the process of submitting an award nomination and a session proposal, and hopefully we'll accomplish that today. We also want to be sure to eliminate any intimidation you may have about completing an award nomination and submitting a session proposal. And again, hopefully find that after today, it's really an easy process and it's something you can tackle. And last but not least, we hope to increase the quantity and quality of award nominations and session proposals within all of the regions. This is only going to increase the opportunities we have to reward and showcase the amazing work and people that we all have around us. So with that said, I'd like to get started. And I'm going to start by queuing up with Jacqueline's help, the video that Matt Davis has started to work on. I want you to keep in mind it's a draft, it's a first run through, it's a rough cut, but we thought we would at least show it to you to see where we're headed and the kinds of resources that we hope to have available. So without further ado, I offer you our premiere of Matt Davis.
Hello. Thanks for your interest in learning more about the UPCEA Awards application process. The UPCEA Awards are a great way to recognize the hard work and innovative ideas of staff, students, and faculty from your institutions. My name is Matt Davis, and in this video, we're going to walk through the process of creating and submitting a great awards application. There are 3 general awards categories, and awards in each of these categories share a very similar application process and evaluation criteria. There are 5 evaluation criteria for each award. Think of these as your objectives to meet within the application. Let's review each criterion. First, we have alignment. Here you want to demonstrate how the nominee fits the award. So for example, the Extraordinary Leadership and Service Award is focused on the extraordinary contributions to the mission of continuing education on the regional, national, or international level. Next, the criteria refer to the more specific elements that should be evident in the nominee for the award. You might think about this in the same way you'd align course content to course objectives. This can be done through various examples. Examples make up the 3rd criteria. Examples should align with the criteria and overall award and demonstrate the exemplary nature of the nominee relative to the award. Examples can be drawn from sources you already have on hand, such as program reports, outcomes assessments, student testimonials or feature stories, program data, letters of support from key people associated with the individual, or even the program nominee. The 4th criteria is impact potential. Think about how the nominee has impacted the field. This can be highlighted in metrics and testimonials of impact and drawn from the same sources as your examples. Again, consider using annual reports here, evaluations for program nominations, and other data you have on hand. Finally, the committee looks at the overall quality of the nomination and how well it demonstrates excellence in the award category. Your application is a culmination of all of the terrific efforts of the individual program nominee. As you prepare to submit your awards application, don't hesitate to reach out to the awards committee or your colleagues with any questions you have. We want to support you in creating a stellar application and earning the recognition for your wonderful accomplishments in the field of professional and continuing education. Thanks for watching.
Awesome. So first I want to just, to thank Matt, who's not with us, but thank him for his time in doing this. This is a perfect example of the type of volunteer leadership that exists within the UPCEA organization. This exemplifies it. I also want to remind you that that is a rough draft. It is a work in progress. Matt does talk a lot about nominations, award nominations, but ultimately this video will also talk to the idea of session proposals as well, since they do follow a similar format in terms of how they're submitted. And again, if there's any questions that you have throughout the webinar, please use the chat function. I'm happy to answer them or field the questions as I can, or get them out to the folks on this call who are absolute experts in both of these areas. So without further ado, I'd love to turn this over to team number one. I affectionately refer to them as our green team, Mary Angela, Marcy, Danelle, and Nichole, who are going to talk to you about some tips and best practices and their experience with regard to award nominations. Take it away, green team.
All right, thank you, Paul. So this is Mary Angela, and I'm going to be asking our distinguished panels 4 different questions. So Marcy, if you can answer this question first, and then Danielle and Nichole after Marcy. So what type of submissions are apt to grab your attention? What pops out at you for the awards?
I would say probably new and innovative ideas. It's really stand out. And then also things that have a large scale impact, affect a lot of people, or a social impact. Those would probably be the things that pop out to me the most.
Thank you. Danielle?
This is Danelle. So I have to echo what Marcy said. In my notes, I wrote that we're really drawn, because we're fellow educators, the awards committee, and we're drawn to innovative programs and partnerships, and then individual awards that are clearly well-deserved.
Thank you. Nichole?
Yeah, so I have the luxury of going third, right? So I can say that that I ditto. But with that, I also think that some things that pop out is the fact that if it's organized. If it's organized, it really pops out because it's easy to read. It allows us to go through it very succinctly, and we make sure that, you know, if the presentation is unique in any way, that's very important. So things that are unique, whether it's an opening statement, whether they put a picture on the front, you don't have to be super fabulous, but something that will make it stand out is very, very helpful. But organization is the #1 thing for me.
And following the 4 tips or the 5 tips that we just saw. So next question, are what are common mistakes that people make in submitting an award nomination? And, Danielle, if you could answer that first.
Yes. So for common mistakes that we've seen in submissions are that some people are not addressing or providing all of the required criteria information. So that's important. We want to make sure that all the criteria is met. For instance, there are certain things like with the Excellence in Teaching Award, if the criteria states in there that we'd like to see some sort of evaluation of the instructor or evaluation results of their classes, then please be sure to include that. And then the other common mistake is just that there might be too much fluff, or people might be going off on a tangent in the program narrative or summary. We prefer, as Nichole stated, for you to keep the narrative or the summary very succinct, very well organized, so that as the committee is going through the award nomination, we're able to do so quickly and easily.
Thank you. And Nichole, how would you answer that?
The same way. No. So I would say omitting a very important piece and not answering all the questions. That's a very big thing for us. Sometimes people get so wrapped up in nominating the person that they forget about putting all the pieces in there, right? So even though don't neglect the necessary documents, you know, in just trying to remember to talk so much about whether it's the organization or the person that you're nominating, and then you forget to put in all the attachments or necessary things that need to be there to make the application complete.
Marcy, your thoughts?
In addition to not maybe submitting everything that the criteria requires, sometimes it's unclear how it's even meeting the criteria. So just make sure you're very clear. And sometimes there's fluff, but there's lack of detail, substantive detail. So I think make sure that you're really hitting those criteria. And then The other thing that we see occasionally is kind of lackluster letters of support. So yes, you asked your dean to write a letter and they write, hey, this is a great program. I really support it. So that really doesn't sell your nomination. I mean, you got the right person to write the letter, but it doesn't really tell you much more about the program. So it really doesn't add to the nomination that much.
Right, and I think if an application or submission doesn't have to be long, it can be a shorter application, but you're correct, clear, distinct, and on target points. The next question is, we often think about barriers that, you know, oh, I'm not going to do this because I have this barrier in submitting a nomination. And what are ideas that can help us figure out how to remove some of those barriers? And Nichole, we'll go with you first.
Okay, so one of the things that I think has been a barrier that we've just heard, and whether it's at conferences or just through people who have nominated, is the time frame. It seems to come right after commencement for everyone. It's just a crazy time of year, right? The weather is breaking, it's spring. So the time frame has been an issue, but we've adjusted the time frame to shift it a little bit, open the time frame, the window a little bit more, so that there's more than, you know, a 1 or 2 week nomination. It's now a month. So that goes into the summer. So a little bit of that down lull time that happens in June is perfect. That's what you can do. You can submit your nomination down in the lull time. And then the length of the form. We've made sure that that the form asks the question, so you can answer the question, and kind of is that the form is designed to kind of help eliminate a lot of the fluff, right? So kind of, if you stick with answering the questions on the form and stick to the way the nomination form is designed, that would be very helpful. And as far as how we've also broken down some of those barriers is the way that they can submit those forms. So the submission on the website, the system and where you can submit the form is I would say it's very easy, but I've seen it. So to me, it's easy. But once you get a hang of it, it can become a very easy form to submit.
Thank you. And Marcy, barriers that you've encountered.
This is actually what we developed a tips and tricks for our last round, because I think this is probably the stumbling point for a lot of institutions. Playing off of Nicole's comment on the timeline, I would say plan early, make your requests early, and give the people you're asking to submit materials lots of time, as much as you can. One of the things I think people have trouble with is even thinking up what the ideas are. So look at past award winners, and you can go, oh, hey, my institution's doing that. Maybe we can, we have something like that. Maybe it would be award worthy as well. Sometimes we even form a little pop-up committee just to brainstorm. And then I think the really key thing is make somebody be in charge, or ask somebody to be in charge of shepherding each nomination through. That could be one person that's doing all of them, or a person for each nomination, because that person should be responsible for making sure you're getting the right materials selected, making sure they're coming in, and then getting the nomination in. I think that one person headlining each of the nominations is really critical.
Yes, thank you. And Daniela, any barrier breakers that you can suggest?
So I just echo what my colleagues have shared for barriers. I think that the barriers that I've seen are that people can get intimidated by the criteria that's outlined for the award categories, and then also that they sometimes wait a little too late in the game to begin preparing the nomination. As Marcy and Nichole alluded to, that really it does take some preparation, but it's not as scary as it might look. It's much easier than some might think. And then also for those people that see the same institution, or perhaps some of the larger universities receiving a lot of the awards, and thinking that perhaps my private institution or this smaller institution is not, eligible for this award, or wouldn't meet this award category. I would just encourage you that is not the case. There's no bias, and we encourage any institution that's within UPCEA to submit a nomination, because you're doing wonderful work and we want to recognize you.
Exactly. And I think sometimes we think it's a complicated process, and so we're look at it and say, oh my goodness, I can't start this because it's just going to be too hard, too much work, and too many details. But I again, if you start a little bit earlier and you look at it as being very simple and very distinct, that the complication often will not seem so intimidating. And then my final question, I'll just throw this out to all the three of you, are any other tips or best practices that you'd like to share that we have not yet touched on?
I would just say challenge yourself to try it. Challenge yourself to just pick one category where you think you might excel and try it, because you will find out, just as everybody else has said, it's not that bad. And your institution does have as good a shot as any other institution, because as Danelle said, you're all doing great work.
Yeah. Yeah, there are no tricks. Just to, you know, sometimes people think, okay, what's the trick? There are no tricks. We want people to submit nominations and recognize our colleagues for the work that they do. So.
And then just lastly, I would recommend that those of you who would like to submit a program nomination, that you would provide a website link with program information, attach a program brochure or guide, anything that has more information about that program to where we can get a good sense of what that program is all about, is always awesome for us as an awards committee. And if the individual that you're nominating has been recognized in an article or featured on a website in some way, please include that information as well. As Marcy, I believe, alluded to earlier, please ensure that the people who are writing the letters of support or recommendation, that they know the nominee and they can speak well of their work. And that just for those who win or who are nominating, perhaps start developing a video about the program or partnership that you've nominated, because what we've seen is that both the awards committee and the conference attendees, they love to see video overviews at the awards presentation. So those are always great to get working on early.
I'd like to just say the pride and the honor that the recipients feel is just absolutely heartwarming. And so when you think about, you know, you're submitting a submission on paper, but really there's a personality and their teams that are behind these nominations, and to see them awarded and see how thrilled they are to receive them, really, you at the end of the day say, this is good stuff. So I want to thank you, Paul, for the opportunity, and thank our panel for sharing their wisdom. And we'll throw it back to you, Paul.
Well, I was taking copious notes. I'm probably learning more on this webinar than I ever certainly knew before. Great tips, great ideas. You can tell it's coming from the heart, and you guys, I think you did a great job nailing the things that people need to consider. I've taken a lot of notes. I wish that right now I'm ready. I want to submit an award nomination now. I'm ready to click. I've got to finish this up first though, but you got me all charged up and ready to go. I hope that others out there are as well, excited and now thinking about the kinds of things that you want to think about submitting for an award nomination. And I'd like to say that, like, you know, give it your best shot. Oftentimes award nominations, if they don't actually make it to the program and actually get acknowledged as an award program, sometimes they become session proposals or they find a life beyond. So bring to light the great stuff that's happening within your institutions and share it with us. I also want to point out that award nominations are open. So if you go to your region's website and click on the link, everything you need to get started is there. And in just a few, we're going to share some additional resources that are available to you on your region's website. So Mary Angela, Marcy, Danelle, and Nichole, thank you so much. Awesome information. I certainly learned a ton today. If there's questions from our folks joining us out in webinar land, please, again, throw them to us through the chat function. At this point, I'm gonna shift over to our next extraordinary team of Terry, Mike, Michele, and Khusro, who are going to share some thoughts and tips and best practices and stories about session proposal nomination. So take it away, Orange team.
Yeah. Well, Paul, we set ours up a little bit differently. So we decided to come up with a list of tips and suggestions that that Mike is going to be adding to the resource list if we don't already have it out there. So we'll probably just speak in that order of the way that we wrote down those notes, so that it kind of makes sense to guide us through the topics. So first, I'm going to speak to submitting a concurrent session. It's a simple form, so you have to think about the quality and about how to make your submission stand out again, as they talked about in the awards segment here. So one of the things that I've learned is that collaboration can be key. So sometimes you might see that another institution has a similar topic that they've presented on, similar to yours, or they have experience in that area. So you might suggest, I would always suggest reaching out to those individuals using the core member directory and asking if they would like to present with you. Make sure if this is for a regional conference, that they're in your region. We actually, as an example, I had presented with one of our faculty members on our healthcare online internship system, and Amy Heisman saw me talk about it, and she suggested that we collaborate with the University of Hawaii, Sally Patana, on her apprenticeship healthcare program. So we did that last March at National, and it was very well received, and we had a great audience for the last day. And so collaborate whenever you can, whenever you think you're going to be submitting on a topic, something like that. Another thing that I would suggest is make sure you do talk with others at your institution to avoid duplication. We did have last year at Central Region several similar topics, and actually some of the same presenters from the same institution. So unfortunately, whenever there are duplicates received, the first thing that the national staff has to do is go ahead and delete some of those duplicates. So please try to do that to avoid being deleted from the outset. Choosing a topic. I would say that if this is your first UPCEA conference, if you have lots of ideas, you're not sure what topic to finally ultimately choose, go back and look at maybe the national program or the previous regional program. Also talk with other UPCEA members to see which topics have been resonating with the UPCEA audience, and reach out to somebody if you still are not quite sure, either at national level or on your regional board, or somebody that's on the planning committee, especially the concurrent subcommittee. Just someone, and ask them which topics are being well received. And finally, maximize your work. Presentations can often be turned into papers for publication, and then you can also, if they're published, submit those for regional or national awards, for the research award. So make sure you think about those things whenever you're working on these presentations. Ways to increase proposals submitted at your conference. This is a segue into those of us who serve on the planning committees and on those subcommittees. If you see that there was something presented by a regional member at the national conference, you're interested in that topic for the upcoming regional conference, ask them if they're willing to present. Also, this resulted in several excellent presentations for us. I reached out to several members last year in our regional conference. We had the most concurrent sessions ever, and one of them won Best of Show and was received at National. So this works out really well when you do things like that. And also, we've been routinely including time for award winners at our Online Administration Network National meeting. So we've been talking about at our regional meetings, also asking award winners to come and present on their awards. So those are just some ways that you can actually ramp up your the quality of your concurrent sessions as well. So the next person on our that was part of our team is Michele. So you're up.
All right, thank you, Terry. I appreciate all of your great tips. I have a few tips that I want to share with all of you from my last couple of years of being the vice chair for the online administration network. The first one piggybacks with what Terry mentioned, in that multiple institutional partnerships are really valued among the reviewers. And this past year, we had a submission or a presentation that was a tale of 3 institutions, successes, challenges, and pitfalls in creating and maintaining online courses. And this was a collaborative presentation with presenters from Tulane, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Maryland University College. So hearing those different perspectives and experiences really added a lot of value to the topic. So again, if you can find somebody out there that has a similar topic of interest to you, then it's really encouraging for you to submit together. My next tip that I have is to clearly identify the learning objectives and the audience takeaways for your presentation. As reviewers, we have a rubric that we use to evaluate your submissions, and some of the items that are included on there are what are your learning objectives for your presentation and what are the takeaways that people who are attending your presentation will have. And this having this clearly identified on your proposal is advantageous, not just for us, the reviewers, but it also helps us to inform the audience of the relevancy and the impact of your presentation if it is accepted. The last tip that I had is to not get hung up on not knowing which network to submit to. Oftentimes, as I'm thinking about submitting a presentation myself, I wonder, should it be in this network? Should it be in the other network? And I get flustered and I'm not sure which one and I just don't know what to do. It's better for you just to go ahead and submit to a network. Behind the scenes, all of us who are vice chairs for the annual conference will meet with Amy Heitzman from the UPCEA and talk about what was submitted into our network. And if we find a presentation submission that's better suited for another network, we will make that adjustment during this process of the reviewing of the submissions. So it's better for you just to take the time and get something submitted and not worry too much about which network it best fits with. We'll take care of that if it's misaligned. That's all the tips I had. Terry, who's next?
I think that would.
Yeah, Terry, that's me. Khusro.
Yes, okay, Khusro.
Yes, so I've served as vice chair for the PPI, the Program Planning and Implementation Network, for the past, this will be my 3rd year, and I'm going to share some tips based on my experience. First and foremost, just use common sense. This is not unlike any other academic or professional association and conference, and it's essentially the game is there's always more proposals than there are slots, and you want to be the winning one. To that end, here are some insights. Number one is UPCEA encourages broad participation of institutions on the program. So for example, if some of you attending today are from a community college, I would highly encourage you to consider sharing some exciting work that's going on there. You have a good shot, and connecting to a point that Michele made earlier, there's also an opportunity for multi-institution presentations, and you might get paired. If you're doing exciting work with digital badges, for example, you'll be sought after, and you might likely get a spot. That's number one. Number two, which relates to number one, is if you are working on an on-the-frontier idea, and from year to year, these change, and you can track what those are for UPCEA just by looking at some of the posts that UPCEA is making, last year's program and so on. But if that's the case, then certainly you should go ahead and submit. If you're not selected by yourself, you'll more than likely have a chance to be combined with, curated along with another institution that has done work on the same topic. Number three is, if you've had success at a regional conference, then certainly consider submitting a proposal to the national, especially if you have continued to do work in that area and the work has evolved. You have something new to share. Proposals that are and presentations that are well received at regional have a good shot. I'll close with the bottom line. The bottom line is that UPCEA wants to promote sharing of innovative and exemplary work and ideas. If you think your unit is doing such work, consider submitting a proposal. It's as simple as that. And remember, that even though your proposal might not make the final cut in the annual, it is regularly the case that UPCEA reviewers recommend proposals to other UPCEA outlets, like the regional or a workshop or a webinar. Visibility of good work is always a good idea, so just go for it and participate in the process.
Excellent point. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Mike, it's your turn.
All right. So when we're prompted with like some of these the best practices and tips, being a past chair for the Marketing Enrollment Management Seminar, my co-chair and I had to sit down with our planning committee and really evaluate the proposals to make sure that they met the criteria, but also they brought something to the seminar, and they were also relative to the industry that we're in. So one thing that I like to see is that you're always constantly learning at any type of conference, any webinar or whatnot that you're going to attend. You're always learning from your network of peers. So one thing that I say is if you're going to submit a proposal on something that you may be struggling with, maybe something that you're excelling with and that you want to share those success stories, just really kind of keep it interactive and think about the presentation that you would give. Instead of just having a person speaking to an audience, kind of keep that interactiveness. And maybe you might be able to come away with some best practices just from your own session. Also, if you are to submit a proposal, make sure that your description is clear and relative to the presentation. Reviewing some of the submissions that we've had in the past, some of those presentations do transform over the year while you're planning them, and sometimes the description of the program or the presentation doesn't necessarily match up with what you're actually going to say. So just really be clear, concise, and keep to the topic. Also, we've, at the Marketing Enrollment Management Seminar over the past couple of years, we launched the UPCEA Talks, taken from the annual conference. And those sessions, everybody really got afraid of submitting proposals to, and they didn't want just the 10 to 15 minute blocks of time within the session. Don't be afraid to do that. You're actually in a session with other peers that have the same type of topic, and you can collaborate with peers across the nation in order to really kind of explain or show what you're doing. And then also just really know your audience. Make sure that the session proposal and presentation is relatable to the specific audience. I'm going to go back to the Marketing Enrollment Management Seminar, is that a lot of the presentations are marketing based or enrollment management based or data based or technology based. Sometimes an academic presentation may not qualify, but you never know depending on how you end up proposing it. So just really know your audience and make sure that you're clear and concise about your proposal.
I think Terry, I think you might be on mute. There you go. No.
Am I okay now?
Yes, more than okay.
Okay, well, I think we are done. If I see one question, what percentage of session proposals get accepted or rejected? I'm sure it depends on the pool. So for those of you that have served on those subcommittees, do you have a ballpark idea?
Yes, Terry, so I can start there. And so PPI, the network that I participate in fact, happens to attract the highest number of proposals. This past year, we were close to about 35 or so. Now there are 6 slots that are dedicated to PPI. So that's about a 20% which is a little less than 15 to 20% acceptance rate, which is pretty high. And there is a caveat to that. Although there are 6 slots, a phase of curation, if you will, that occurs once we receive all of the proposals, and that is the time when we combine. When there are similar topics across 2 or more proposals, we'd combine proposals, and that allows for, in fact, even higher participation. So I would guess, and I'm pretty sure this is close to what was the case this past year, about 10 or 11 institutions, 10 or 11 proposers were on the program among the 35 awards, so which is about a 30% acceptance rate. Much higher as compared to academic conferences, but not uncommon, I believe, for professional conferences. Once again, all points to encouraging you to apply.
And I see a note from Amy that the percentage you mentioned is what that is for the network. So it says on average about half. Regions have a higher acceptance rate up to 60 to 70%. So that's good to know.
Right. I just wanted to reiterate what Khusro said with his network. We did the same thing with the Online Administration Network, where we had several proposals that were similar, and we joined them together. We reached out to the various authors and asked them if they'd be willing to combine their efforts into a single presentation, or if we wanted to restructure it to be a panel discussion. We did that for a few as well. I see that there's also another question from Catherine about topic areas that are severely underrepresented. And I just wanted to reiterate to her that on our call for presentations, we often list some of those topics that individuals in our network have identified as topics they want to hear more about. So I encourage you to look at those calls for presentations of the various networks.
I can reiterate that, Catherine, at the regional level, we've done that for the super regional. I don't know which regional you are part of, but since you can actually see those now, those forms, you can see that we're asking for topics such as alternative credentials because those are underrepresented. Last year, and our regional attendees asked for, that was, I think, the highest requested topic. So we are trying to do that. Whenever you look at the text involved with each call for proposals, include the underrepresented ones that have been requested.
Also, Terry, can I jump in on that as well as on the marketing and enrollment management side? We're always looking for more enrollment management presentations. Enrollment management is really not that as flashy as marketing. So any type of strategy or enrollment management presentations would be great too.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Excellent. Guys, thank you so much. Having such a bright and articulate and informed group makes moderating this thing so easy. Lots of great information. I can't wait to go back and watch the webinar a second time and take maybe better notes, because there's some great tips in there, and I appreciate you all sharing that. So Mary Angela, Marcy, Danelle, and Nichole, and to Terry, Mike, Michele, and Khusro, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your knowledge about this process. And I'm sure that it's been valuable for the folks who have had the opportunity, certainly for me, and I'm sure for the folks who have had a chance to talk with us. Catherine, thank you for your questions. If there's any other questions for this all-star team that we have with us today, again, use the chat function. We have some time at the end for some Q&A. We'd love to continue to dialogue. And again, my appreciation to all of you for sharing with us today. The next thing that I hope that we could do is, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the resources that are being created and are being archived for us to access on our regional websites. And Jackie is going to bring up for you now. This is just an example. This is the Mid-Atlantic webpage that you're looking at now. But you should be able to go to your region's webpage, and under the call for awards, you will see that there is now a link at the bottom for some curated resources. It will take you to a unique page, and this page is the same for all regions. it will take you to a page that will continue to grow. It's a live and breathing and living document, so we'll continue to add resources here. A lot of what some of the panelists today talked about, some of their work will be part of this repository of great information. The video that we showed you before, which is in our early stages, that will be here and available for you to view. And in addition, towards the bottom of this page, and Jackie will show you, there are some step-by-step instructions on how to actually go through the mechanics, if you will, of submitting an award nomination or session proposal. So again, on your region's websites, you can find this. So, you know, on that Saturday or Sunday, when you find the time to submit one of these nominations or session proposals, you can find everything, hopefully everything you need. If you have information from your region that you wish to share, please forward that along to us. We'd love to add that to the resource page and see this as becoming something really helpful as we move forward. So thank you to our friends and colleagues at UPCEA National for their help and work on putting that together. I'd like to, if we can, talk about upcoming opportunities. I think you heard the group say awards are open, session proposals are open. Go to your region's webpage, click on the link. Again, these resources are there. Take a moment, submit a nomination, recognize the work that's going on. And again, all of this is open now. So if you leave this webinar charged up and ready to go, you can actually start working on some of these things right now today. I'm not going to read through all of those. I think that would be pretty boring on a webinar, but you can see that there's a lot of opportunities to showcase the work that's happening in your institutions. I'd like to open it up now, if we can, to some general Q&A. Again, this is an incredible panel of folks, so take advantage of the time we have with them today. I'll give folks a few moments to think about some questions. I really appreciate it. As we're waiting, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the way each group approached providing the information. I liked the Q&A of our first team. I loved the step-by-step. Khusro had his 1, 2, 3, and you know there's some really clear things to think about. When you were talking, Terry, I was thinking to myself, there needs to be an acronym for collaboration, duplication. Like, we need an acronym for that. But great information. Questions from our friends who have joined us today? Is there anything else that our panelists wish to share? Anything that, any moments of learning for you today, perhaps, from listening to your colleagues chat about award nominations and session proposals? Any aha moments for you? I had many, multiple of them, actually. None?
Yeah, Paul, I actually, you know, this was certainly as I was reflecting, getting together my thoughts for this session, I once again came to realize how sort of hands-on and high-touch UPCEA is as an association. It takes good care of good ideas and good work. And again, I'm saying that to underscore and encourage you to apply. If you have some ideas, apply, even though they won't make it to the national, they'll certainly make it to some form or the other. And you'll make great connections through the process. If you're paired with another institution, that's an exciting journey. I've presented recently twice, and both times we were curated with other institutions, and it was a tremendous learning, professional development experience. And really, we had part of our experience at the conference, in fact, occurred even before we got there in preparing for a curated session. I can't say enough about that opportunity. The second thing I'll underscore here is, and I think Amy was pointing to that as well, PPI once again is perhaps the most competitive. There are other networks that have acceptance rates that are much higher. So anywhere between 30 to 50 to 60 is what I was hearing. And that's, if you like success, if you enjoy success, we all do, consider submitting a proposal.
That's awesome. Thanks, Khusro. Appreciate the comments. There's another question actually about the session rubric. Terry, I see you nodding your head there. So,
well, you know, this is great because we talked about this yesterday, and guess what? It's going to be on the resources page if it's not already there. So
I believe Jackie just queued it up. We're going to show the scoring rubric will be there. So it's a great question, and you'll all be able to see exactly what criteria is being used. Excellent question. Thank you, Terry. There. Jackie's walking us through the whole thing right now. There you go. Format, relevance, takeaways. Excellent.
Yep,
so again, I encourage you to go to that resource page. And if you have any thoughts or ideas or suggestions, please share them with your region's chair, share them with someone so we can continue to get that page to be continue to grow and provide the information that is so helpful to each of us as we navigate through our regions. Well, I can't thank the panelists enough. We're at about 9 minutes before the end. We may end a little earlier, which I think that would be fine with everyone. A 50-minute webinar sounds completely appropriate. I think Khusro, you provided a really great segue to how I think we should close today, which is that you're part of a really vibrant organization as members of UPCEA. And it's obvious just in hearing from the panelists today and myself having the opportunity to work with many of these folks who I haven't had the pleasure of working with. It really is a vibrant and welcoming and inclusive and collaborative, as you pointed out, Terry, collaborative organization. If you have a question, if you're stuck on something, you need some help, reach out, reach out and connect. I mean, that is something that is available to you all the time, whether it's your regional chair, whether it's a member of one of the planning committees, maybe it's CORE, that you're reaching out through CORE, or it's one of our colleagues at the Washington office. There are resources available. So remember, you're not alone. It's right at your fingertips. I guess I could say now it's time to go get busy and start getting some award nominations and session proposals prepared. I want to thank the panelists again for sharing their time and talent today, and all of you who joined us today, showing your interest in this topic of awards and session proposals. And I wish everyone a good afternoon. Thanks again for joining us. Bye-bye.